Deion Sanders and Colorado are dominating college football in one aspect, and people hate it. They are everyone's Super Bowl, whether you like it or not, but I'll explain why they're everyone's Super Bowl.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I am your host, Kevin Borba. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As playoffs wind down, the sports stop sporting like we want them to, but this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We are also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcast. So thank you guys for tuning in, my everydayers. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate everyone, new listeners, old listeners. I appreciate you all. Let's have some fun. Colorado football is currently the biggest story in college football, or one of the biggest stories in college football, I guess, now that this has kind of blown over a little bit. But I wanted to bring attention to it because I've been asked to come on multiple shows over the past few days, and they keep asking me, how can Colorado be someone's Super Bowl when they went 4-8? They had to revamp their roster again. They just aren't viewed as a competitive team. Their win total is at 5.5. They're not really expected to contend in the Big 12. How could they be someone's Super Bowl, right? And that's kind of the question that I've been asked, I think, 5 times in the past week. And it's like, okay, why are we purposely missing the point here? When Colorado, specifically Shedeur Sanders, when Shedeur Sanders said that Colorado is everyone's Super Bowl, I think people took that as like Shedeur Sanders thinks that Colorado is the best thing since sliced bread. People think that Shedeur Sanders thinks Colorado is God's gift to earth. And I don't think that's what he was saying. In fact, he is saying, and you could tell this based off the attention that Colorado gets, that people care about what Colorado are doing, regardless of whether they're good or not. Millions, record viewership watched them beat or lose to Stanford. They were beating them up in the first half, lost to Stanford in double overtime. Record amount of viewers tuned into Colorado State, 9.5 million or some ridiculous number like that. A record amount of viewers. Okay. Oregon, did they play any Dan Lanning hype speech during the regular season at all? Like, was there a hype speech against Washington? Was there a hype speech against Washington the second time? Oregon State? No. The hype speech that everyone talks about, that everyone remembers, that people still quote to this day, is Dan Lanning's speech against Oregon. So what does this mean? How can Colorado and Deion Sanders dominate college football without dominating college football? Because you probably think that's an oxymoron. You probably think that's stupid. But let me tell you, it's not, because they are dominating college football in the sense of they are the most popular story consistently in college football. I would say over at SEC Media Days, besides the fact that people were asking about Texas nonstop, and I think the Texas Longhorns were the biggest story of SEC Media Days, there was discussions about Colorado at SEC Media Days because people want to talk about Deion Sanders and what he's doing. If you're going to tell me that we're going to talk about a team who's not relevant, no one cares about, blah, 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 all this, all that, and they have nothing to do with the event, I'm going to tell you that you're proving Shedeur Sanders' point correct. If you want Colorado to not view themselves as everyone's Super Bowl, as sort of this, I don't know, enigma in college football, or this like bright spot in college football where they're bringing in all this attention, they're bringing in all these new fans, you have to stop sort of treating them like they are your Super Bowl. Like, everyone's getting worked up over everything they say. Like, I think more people get worked up over what Colorado people do or say than their own team. It's one of those things where over the past couple of days, when Texas has been at SEC Media Days, Steve Sarkisian said this about Arkansas, that he thinks Arkansas hates Texas more than they like themselves. And I think someone said something similar about Texas A&M, where they hate Texas more than they like themselves. And I think the same could be said for Colorado. I think people hate Colorado more than they like their own team, which in effect makes them your Super Bowl in a way that you're giving them attention, right? I remember growing up as a kid, I was the younger cousins of the group. I'm only older than at this time I was only older than one person in my family. So I'd want to hang out with all my older cousins who were in high school and college, and they would like purposely do things to bother me because I'm like a 10-year-old kid and they're all in high school or college or whatever, and they're just messing with me. And I'm like getting all worked up about it. And my mom kept saying, hey, if you want them to not annoy you, stop getting annoyed about it. Stop giving them the attention. And I think that's what people need to realize about Colorado. Stop giving them all this attention if you don't want them to feel like they are so important. Now, I'm not going to pretend like if certain people stop caring about Colorado, no, not everyone's going to care about Colorado, because at the end of the day, the most important people in the sport, in the sense of like who controls the sport, they care about Colorado. There's a reason, one of the reasons, that Colorado's in the Big 12 now, right? Deion Sanders elevates that brand to the point where the Big 12 wanted them badly. Would Colorado have gotten into the Big 12 before, or if not before, if Deion Sanders wasn't there, like if Carl Durrell was there before Deion Sanders, we'll say. I think they might have, right? I think the Big 12 was looking for a location thing. I think they wanted the four corner schools. Arizona State's not hot right now at all. Like not the West. It's very hot there in Arizona. But they're not a trending upward program at the moment. I think they're headed in the right direction, but you can't really say that Arizona State is going to be a anything really. We don't know what they're going to be because Kenny Dillingham still has work to do, which I think he will do just fine. But I can't imagine that Deion Sanders' brand didn't help sort of facilitate that move, right? TV people, TV conglomerates, ESPN, Fox, whoever it is, they're going to put Colorado on television every week. That's how it works, because they know fans will watch. They know they will get millions of viewers to watch a Colorado versus, I don't know, Colorado State game again, or Colorado versus Texas Tech. Because in normal years, if you said to any college football fan like 7 years ago, hey, Colorado's playing Texas Tech, are you tuning in? They'd probably be like, maybe. I might watch it. I might scroll through or flip through it. Now everyone's like, yeah, Deion Sanders' team is playing. I want to watch him lose. Or Deion Sanders is playing. I want to watch him succeed. I want to watch him sort of pave the way for college football coaches to do things a little differently. So everything that Deion Sanders does at Colorado, is helping him dominate the headlines. Now, you obviously want to dominate on the gridiron too, but I think dominating the headlines is going to help Colorado in the sense that they will have more chances than anyone. I'll put it this way. They will have more chances than anyone to make a statement this year. Their first game against North Dakota State, prime example. It's a Thursday night game. I don't think anyone else is going to be playing that day, right? And so millions of people are going to tune into that game. And I would say probably half the population is like, it'd be hilarious if they lost to North Dakota State. Statement game. People are going to be tuned in. People are going to be watching. Same thing against Nebraska. Colorado beat the brakes off of them last year, but now they have a 5-star quarterback. So everyone's like, well, it's different. They have a 5-star quarterback. Let's just tune in to see how different that is with their 5-star quarterback. So everyone is tuning into Colorado because they care. Everyone is tuning into Colorado because they want to see a result, whether it's a positive result, a negative result. They want to see something that yields results. And Deion Sanders is always going to attract attention. So for those getting all worked up about Colorado being someone's Super Bowl, despite not being a powerhouse in college football, just look at how much you care about Colorado saying they're someone's Super Bowl. You are your own worst enemy in that argument. So that's my take on that. You guys comment below. Is Colorado anyone's Super Bowl? Are they the Super Bowl of college football because of how badly people want to beat them? I would say yes. You guys let me know what you think. When we come back, we are going to be talking about the latest in Big 12 expansion. This episode of Locked on Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at FanDuel. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sporting like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel and start making the most out of summer. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Welcome back to Locked on Buffs. I appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. My everydayers, you know who you are. You tune in every single day. You like, you comment, you subscribe, you share this with friends. You follow the Twitter, whatever it is. I appreciate you guys, and I want you guys to know that. Also, if you guys need a new place to watch sports, I got just the thing for you. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day, and you have to turn down the volume with all the shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streamed 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Let's talk about Big 12 expansion. I think realistically, the market's not huge right now. Okay. There's not many teams out. This isn't like the Pac 12 where USC and UCLA leave and it's like, okay, the Pac 12, we're going to rebuild this thing. Like everyone was optimistic. I had multiple people come on my show, conference realignment insiders, if you will. And they're like, yeah, the Pac 12 is going to work. It's going to stick out. And it didn't, which is unfortunate. A lot of people lost jobs. I think for me personally, I had like a little personal tie to the Pac 12 because that was my first job out of college. I got a job at the Pac 12 network. So this isn't the Pac 12 where it's like there's some sort of like thought where the conference can be rebuilt. And there's also a thought that at any given moment, any team in the conference can leave. There are not that many programs currently looking for a place to go right now. There are two, and they are major. It's Florida State, it's Clemson. Florida State, I think they kind of got the ball rolling, or like their last straw, which I think it was a culmination of things, really. They missed the playoff. Obviously, the ACC and like the Florida State were like petitioning, doing all this to try to get in or to try to make a case for playoff, whatever. But a lot of people viewed that as the last straw. I don't think it helped that the SEC and the Big Ten are making significantly more, than Florida State, than Clemson, than all the ACC schools in their media rights deals. They all want to make more money. They all want to be viewed as one of the biggest brands in college football or college athletics. And the ACC at the moment is probably the third 3A, 3B, because there's obviously only 4 Power 4 conferences. They are not at the same caliber the SEC, the Big Ten. So they go out, they expand, they add Stanford and Cal, which many programs in that conference were against, Florida State and Clemson included. They were pissed. And so now they're suing the ACC. They each have their own lawsuits. They're suing the ACC for their media rights deal, for having this absorbent amount, I believe is the verbiage used, of money. Because I think at one point it was reported that to leave the ACC, it would cost Florida State like $500 million, which is a lot. And so it'd be not worth it for them to leave. And so they're like, you're basically trapping us here. And so they're in this ongoing lawsuit. And it's been known they want to go to the SEC or the Big Ten. The problem, the SEC and the Big Ten do not want them. Brett McMurphy did a report, Action Sports yesterday, or a couple days ago now, where he was talking about the fact that Florida State and Clemson are wanting all these things. Like they want to get out of this. They want to get out of the conference. They want to get out of the ACC. But their sort of desire to go somewhere else is not being reciprocated. And you're probably like, what does that mean? Why would anyone want them? They're big brands. And they are big brands. And they're one of the few non-SEC programs, because I think dating back to Ohio State, every champion, like dating back to the first playoff, if you will, every champion has been in the SEC outside of, I think, Michigan this past year. And then Clemson and Florida State was also a champion, Florida State before the playoff. So they're champions. But this is what Big Ten people are saying about Florida State. Why would anyone want to expedite more chaos by adding Florida State? There is no appetite among the presidents unless there's some catastrophic development with the ACC and it forces the Big Ten into a decision. If the ACC blows it up, who picks first between the SEC and between the SEC and the Big Ten? And then it says that the ACC doesn't implode, Florida State could be in a dangerous spot. I don't know if they have a home unless there's a doomsday scenario. So realistically, Florida State and Clemson, they need something chaotic to happen, right? So if there is going to be Big 12 expansion, they need to figure out a way to get out of the conference. Now, Florida State and Clemson, this has already kind of been floated out there. They want to sort of, if they were to come to the Big 12, I think they would want to take that Texas-Oklahoma mantle where it's like, okay, we're bigger and better brands than you, so we're going to get paid more than you. And I don't know if the Big 12 wants that or the hassle. I don't know if the Big 12 wants to deal with the lawsuits. So if they could figure out a way to get out and the Big 12 is willing to maybe help out a little bit or just not have to help out at all, the Big 12 is seeming like the landing spot for Florida State and Clemson. So what does that do for a Big 12 conference? Well, for one, I think it kind of gives them a top end. And I'm saying this as someone who I've said this hundreds of times on the show when talking about Colorado and the new Big 12. I think that because the Big 12 doesn't have a brand like Texas or Oklahoma now, it's up for grabs in terms of popularity. It's up for grabs in terms of who could be the face. It's up for grabs in terms of just what's like who's going to represent the Big 12. When you think of the Big 12, you're going to go to insert team. Like when you think of the Big 10, you think of Ohio State, you think of probably Oregon now. You think of Ohio State, you think of Michigan. You think of the SEC, you think of Alabama, you think of Georgia, LSU, Florida. Other teams, obviously. But when you think of the Big 12 right now, it's like Utah, it's Kansas State. It's like all these programs that are not traditional blue blood powers by any means. And so giving the Big 12 those two programs, Florida State and Clemson, sort of gets them to that level. And they're not equal to the SEC or the Big 10, but it will ultimately end the ACC by losing them. And then maybe you could get yourself a Miami, right? Miami is a ginormous brand. Maybe you could get yourself a Virginia Tech or a North Carolina, which North Carolina is reportedly the top SEC expansion candidate. But maybe you get a North Carolina. Like the sky is the limit for the Big 12 if they get them. It's just a matter of how, when, or if they will get those two schools. And realistically, Florida State and Clemson have a long way to go in their legal battles. So it'll be really interesting to see how that unfolds. When we come back, I'm going to be talking about what a hot start can do for the Colorado Buffaloes in 2024. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. So thank you guys for tuning in, liking, subscribing. My everydayers, love you guys. You guys are the best. You always give me the support that I need, and I just could not do the show without you guys. Let's talk about what a hot start does for Colorado. I think a lot of people are talking about Colorado's ceiling. A lot of people are talking about how good or bad they think they're going to be, but I think their season will be dependent on how they start. I think however Colorado starts the season is how they will finish the season, or they will at least set the tone, for how they will finish the season. I'm not saying if they start 5-0, they're going to finish 5-0, but I do think if they start off 4-1, 5-0, I think that opens doors for a lot of things. I think that opens doors for Big 12 title contention. I think it opens doors for just sort of like a more confidence around the program. Because you look at their 3-0 start last year, it was arguably the most electric month of September of college football in my lifetime that I remember. Feel free to correct. Well, you can't correct me because it's what I remember. But if you guys have another September that was so iconic, make sure to comment below. But you look at Colorado's schedule, and off the top of my head, I just look at it and I go, ooh, tough game. Ooh, tough game. They should win. Ooh, tough game. Tough game. Like their first 5 games, I think they can win all of them. I really do. They're favored by around 7.5, 8 points over North Dakota State. Nebraska's favored. They're favored over Colorado State. I imagine at home against Baylor, they'll probably be 4.5 point underdog or 4.5 point favorites. At UCF, I'd probably give the nod to UCF a little bit. So they are underdogs in one, probably at least 2 out of their first 5 games. And so it's like, okay, what does it mean if they start off slow? Well, if they start off slow, I don't even want to know what's going to happen to sort of the storylines around college football, because the same way that I said earlier that Colorado is everyone's Super Bowl, if Colorado starts off terribly, not tremendously, if they start off terribly, it's going to be loud about Boulder. It's going to be loud about Deion Sanders. I think if Colorado, like say, and this is worst case scenario, if Colorado were to start off 1-3, 1-4, I honestly think Deion Sanders would be put on the hot seat by a lot of talking heads. I really do. And like depending on how bad it is, like he may be legitimately on the hot seat. Who knows? But if he starts off 4-1, 5-0, ooh, now we're talking. Now we're talking about what does that do for this team? Well, one, it builds their confidence. Like you look at if they start off strong, they can knock off a ranked Kansas State team. They can take down Arizona on the road. And then they have those final 4 games where it's like, I'm looking at it and I'm like, those are 3 ranked teams and probably a 4th if Texas Tech doesn't stumble. And so if they get off to a strong start, I think they'll have more answers about themselves. I think they'll know sort of their own identity and they will form their identity. If Colorado gets off to a start where they win a couple games and lose it, and Coach Prime's talking about finding their identity again midway through the season, not great. Not great at all. But if they kind of form their identity, are building confidence, and are sort of putting everyone on notice, I think a hot start could get them in the right conversations and also could get this program headed in the right direction on the field, off the field, and recruiting and the transfer portal, all that. The more games Deion Sanders wins, the easier it will be, for him to attract top talent. So a hot start opens a lot of doors. It obviously opens the doors for them to have a good season. It opens the doors for them to get hot on the recruiting trail and maybe pull in a guy like Julian Lewis. So I think a hot start, every team wants to start off well. That's not a hot take, wink, wink. But for Colorado, a good start to the season could move mountains. And I think it may not be the same for every program in the country. That's all I got to say. Appreciate you guys for tuning in to Locked On Buffs today. I hope to see you guys tomorrow. Have a great Thursday. Hope you guys all had fun listening or watching, however you listen to your podcast or grab your podcast. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. See you guys tomorrow. This has been Locked On Buffs.